In the last video, I went over a lot of examples of what you might say to a motion coach in the kinds of situations that come up regularly with most children. Today, I'm going to do the same thing, but we're going to look at situations that are more likely to apply to families with a parent in jail or in prison. Hello again, I'm Dr. Anna Clarkson. I am a specialist in the Human Development and Relationships Institute at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension. Welcome to Parenting Behind the Behavior, and this series is about emotion coaching. In the last 5 videos, we've talked about how emotion coaching is so good for children, and also how emotion coaching can help adults and children feel closer to each other. We then went over the 3 steps of emotion coaching, which are label, empathize, and problem solve. And remember, that stands for LEAPS, or it's LEAPS for short. One thing to remember is that talking about feelings usually makes them easier to handle in the long run. Some adults don't know what to do when children are mad or sad because a parent is still going to be in jail. And sometimes when children talk about their feelings, they get even more upset in the moment and not less. That's okay. When children get more upset, they are just showing you how bad they really feel inside. If you can respond with kindness, compassion, and understanding, they're going to feel better even if your situation or their situation itself doesn't change and their parent is still in jail. So I'd like you to imagine that your child or a child you love was expecting a call from their parent in jail, but the parent didn't call. You might say something like, "You seem pretty mad and maybe a little sad. You were really looking forward to talking to your mom. I get disappointed too when I'm looking forward to something and it doesn't happen. What do you think you could do to let your parent know how much you miss them?" And, a child might not have any ideas about how to let their parent know that they really miss them. And so you could suggest maybe we could draw them a picture or write them a short letter. And that could depend on, how the child best likes to communicate or what age they are. So notice that I labeled the feeling. I said, "You seem pretty mad." And then I offered empathy. I get disappointed too. And then I moved to problem solving. So that was, what do you think we could do? Often children have strong feelings around bedtime. Sometimes adults wonder whether their child is being manipulative or, trying to be difficult. Children might not want to go to sleep. And it's also probably true that once children don't have the things to distract them that are always happening around us in the daytime, they start thinking about their parent who's away or other upsetting events. So imagine that it's bedtime and your child starts crying. You might say, "I know you're really sad. I'm sad too because your dad isn't here. I wish that he could be here to tuck you into bed. Let's whisper one thing we love about Dad and then cuddle for 5 minutes." This really simple response shows a child that you understand, but it also helps your child to learn ways to not be overwhelmed by their sadness. So next, imagine that your child is upset because their parent isn't home to fix their hair. You might say, "It's really frustrating that your mom isn't here. I can't fix your hair as good as them. And you feel really sad and mad. I understand. I wish they were here too so they could make your hair look just right. What different way could we try to make your hair look good today?" A lot of times children get really nervous before seeing their parent in jail. And you might say, "I'm feeling a little nervous about this visit. How about you? I don't like seeing Dad in jail. How about if we each take 3 deep breaths and then do the deep breaths?" So, go. And a third one. Some children get nervous about what will change when their parent comes home. In that case, you might say something like, "I wonder if you are feeling confused and maybe a little nervous about what's going to happen in our family. I know I miss your mom, but I also like having all of this time with you to myself. What are ideas for how we can always be sure to have special time, just you and me?" Once parents come back home, sometimes they don't live up to children's expectations. If something like that happens, you could say, "You seem really disappointed. You wanted everything to be perfect once Dad got home, but sometimes they're grumpy and it's hard to be around, or they're hard to be around. What do you think you could do when that happens? So you're asking the child, when you notice that your dad who just got back from jail is grumpy, what can you do as a response? If the child doesn't have any ideas, you might suggest, maybe you can let me know and we can talk and give your dad some space. If parents come back home, but not for good, they're not staying for a long time, you might need to say, or you might say, it's kind of confusing to have your mom here. I like having her around, but I feel sad and nervous that they will have to leave again. What do you think we can do about all of these different feelings? And again, if the child doesn't have any feelings, you can offer a suggestion. So that suggestion could be, how about if we look at our picture of feelings faces and see how many of the feelings we're having right now? It's good for children to learn to recognize and talk about all the different feelings they might be having at one time. Sometimes our children might be withdrawn, or they might be really hyper, or they might be more likely to hit. Sometimes we can tell that they're upset because their bodies are doing something, but we don't really know exactly what's going on. And in fact, the child themselves might not be able to describe why they're acting hyper or why they're going to their room all the time. In those cases, you can just observe the behavior and you can kind of wonder out loud with the child. So you might say, I noticed you haven't been talking as much lately. I wonder whether you might be feeling a little sad. Or, I noticed that you seem to have a lot of energy lately. I wonder if you're feeling a little worried or nervous. And if your child doesn't seem to know how they're feeling, you could still say, I know I've been feeling a little sad and worried lately. And you could then suggest that you read some books together about kids or animals who are having confusing feelings too. Another thing to remember is that the goal of emotion coaching is to help children develop emotional intelligence and to help them feel closer to you. You don't ever want to force a conversation about feelings. That really defeats the purpose. If a child doesn't want to talk, then you can just let them know that you're there if they change their mind. It is really hard to have a parent in jail or prison. No matter what you do, you can't change that reality and make children's feelings about this really hard thing go away. Even so, it's still important to show children that you care about and understand their feelings and that you're willing to do what you can to help. Even if you are not always successful, children will appreciate your kindness, your compassion, and they will feel closer to you. I do wish you the best. Thank you for watching this series on parenting behind the behavior. Take care.